overnight. A few reports of sporadic incidents around the country, as you said there in Siliana, that's an inland town, also in Kairouana, also in the inland, where police dispersed groups of people who've been seeking to block the streets. Now, that kind of incident really seems to fit the pattern of what's been going on in recent nights. And also, it has to be said, kind of suits the government's narrative. They've increasingly been looking to blame what's been happening on groups of primarily young people going out at night, intent on causing damage to property and clashing with the security forces. All of this started, however, as a spontaneous outpouring of anger, as you said, over rising prices, the rising prices of basic goods. And I think we'll get a better idea of where exactly things are heading in the coming days. Activists and opposition parties have called people out for what they hope are well-attended, peaceful protests across the country, and notably here in the capital. Later today, this weekend, is the anniversary of the Tunisian Revolution. People have traditionally taken to the streets to mark that, but increasingly to vent their discontent at what they feel is an economic situation which has failed to improve.
And you mentioned that discontent. What can the government do to address the underlying causes of these protests?
As you say, it has kind of become cyclical. This is not the first wave of protests we've seen since the revolution. It tends to start in pretty similar circumstances, triggered often at this time of year by things like price rises, but it then sees people venting their anger over a series of things which they feel haven't really improved since the revolution, over a lack of job opportunities for young people, over wealth disparities, particularly between the relatively well-off coastal parts of the country and the interior. The problem for the government is that the very solutions which have been prescribed by experts here in Tunisia, but notably by international lenders and the IMF, are the kind of solutions which are causing these protests in the first place. In the short term, they mean things like tax hikes, they mean things like cuts to public sector jobs, and they also mean price rises. Now, the government's argument is that this will eventually bring about an economic turnaround, that 2018 will be the last time that Tunisians are forced to really tighten their belts. But in a country where a lot of people simply have trouble making ends to meet day to day, obviously when the initial impact of measures like that are felt, it's not going to do anything other than trigger anger.